known to be Darul Harb. Darul Harb means lands that are in either direct fights with Muslims, or the Muslims living there are not very not able to live peacefully or practice the symbols of their deen freely. Okay, so such lands Rasulullah is speaking about. Now, what about giving a Quran as a hadiyah, as a gift to a non-Muslim friend? My advice is try to give one without the Arabic font. Or if you give it to them, then explain to them, because people are very respectful. They will ask you, do I need to wash? Do I need to do? Explain to them nicely that they are not allowed to touch those verses, the verses that are in Arabic, without wudu. Remember the story of Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, when he embraced Islam, his sister required that he wash before he touched the scrolls of the Quran. Right? And where was this? Meccan period. Not Medinan period, Meccan period. Which shows us that ritual purity was a part of the faith even earlier on in the Prophet ﷺ's era, not after Medina Tayyibah. Anyway, so touching the Quran, لا يمسه إلا المطهرون. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, they are not allowed to touch it except the clean ones, those who are excessively clean, which none may touch except the purified. This rule applies equally to the writing and to the blank spaces. Some of our scholars have, I just mentioned that to you. Necessary wudu. What is necessary wudu? This is ablution for circling the Kaaba, tawaf. Tawaf, because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, tawaf of the Kaaba is like salah, except you talk in it. You're allowed to talk in it. In salah, you're not allowed to talk. Have you seen people talk in tawaf? Cell phones, right? Everywhere they're talking around. Papa, umrah tawaf ka Yeah, well, people do it, right? It doesn't nullify the tawaf, but it takes away all the spirituality, it takes away all the rewards. But people do it, right? They want to. This is the. Cell phones are very beneficial, but they can also be very detrimental. And this is one of the areas where having a cell phone is detrimental, okay? Because a person gets distracted while they're trying to focus. Okay, so tawaf, wudu is necessary, but it's not obligatory. What's the difference? I mentioned to you earlier. If you make salah without wudu, there's no compensation for it. You have to repeat the salah. But if you make tawaf without wudu, then you have to pay a penalty. The tawaf is done, but you pay a penalty, without which the tawaf will not be accepted. Do you get see the difference? So the dependency of salah is on wudu, but the dependency of tawaf is not on wudu. See, you get what I'm saying? Especially if the tawaf is what type? It's not a farad tawaf. Which is a farad tawaf? Tawaf ziyarah. Which is a wajib tawaf? Tawaf wida'. What's tawaf wida'? The tawaf we make when we're the farewell tawaf. Okay. There's three tawafs we make: the arrival tawaf, tawaf qudum, then we make tawaf ziyarah, which is during the 5 days of Hajj, and then we make tawaf wida' at the end. Okay. So tawaf wida' is a wajib tawaf. Tawaf ziyarah is a farad tawaf. So tawaf ziyarah is a farad tawaf. So you have to have wudu for that one, no doubt. But for tawaf wida', if you don't have wudu, then you pay a penalty, and the penalty will compensate.
So Umrah is the same thing?
Yeah. The Umrah one is also tawaf, it's a wajib one. This is ablution for circling the Kaaba, because of his statement, upon him be peace and blessings. Circling the Kaaba is like prayer, other than you may speak in it. Thus, whoever does speak should only speak well, the Prophet ﷺ said. However, because it is not an actual prayer, its validity is not dependent on purity. Therefore, if a necessary circling is performed without purity, sacrifice is necessary. If an obligatory circling is performed while sexually impure, a camel is necessary. Charity is necessary if an optional circling is performed without ablution. What's an optional circling? Just normal tawaf. Normal tawaf. Not for any reason. Not tawaf wida', not tawaf ziyarah, not tawaf of umrah, not tawaf. Just a normal tawaf. That's an optional tawaf. Even then you're required to do seven circles and then 2 rak'ah. Okay. But then it says if you don't have wudu during the optional one, then you give a sadaqah. Not sacrificing an animal. But if you don't have wudu, during an obligatory one, then you have, or a mandatory or a necessary tawaf, then you will give a sacrifice of either a camel or a cow. Right.
One question quickly. When you do tawaf and it breaks, can you go out? Will you continue?
Yeah.
Optional tawaf. I mean, local people do it.
Optional tawaf? Anybody does it. But if you're in the haram, I mean, if you're there for more than 2 days or more than a day, you finished your Umrah, then you can make tawaf as many times as you want, as long as you make 7 at once with 2 rak'ah at the end. 7 at once and 2 rak'ah at the end.
So we have the rewards for doing the.
Yes, that is the greatest action you can do then, the most rewarding of actions. Because you can pray anywhere else. You can pray 2 rak'ah at home, in your local masjid, you can read Quran anywhere else. But the 2 things you can't do anywhere else is looking at the Kaaba and making tawaf of the Kaaba. Except Qadianis, they have their own Kaaba somewhere else.
When you finish the tawaf, then you pray 2 rakah.
Sorry?
After circling 7 times, then you pray 2
Yes, after circling 7 times, you pray 2 rak'ah actually. And the requirement is that prayer is performed behind Maqam Ibrahim, but anywhere in the Haram behind Maqam, not directly behind Maqam Ibrahim, anywhere in the Haram behind Maqam Ibrahim. Because praying directly behind Maqam Ibrahim will be difficult due to the crowds. Now, recommended. These are instances when it is recommended for a person to perform ablution. What are those instances? There are many instances in which ablution is recommended. Included in these is touching Islamic books, simply for i'zaz and honor. If you're touching material which may have a verse of Quran in it, which may have a hadith in it, book of fiqh, book of hadith, although it's not a requirement to have wudu, it's highly recommended that a person be pure. Imam Ghazali rahimahullah has mentioned this in here as well, from the etiquettes of knowledge, that a person be extremely pure and clean when they approach sacred knowledge. Allowance has been made for a person in a state of ritual impurity in touching such books, with the exception of Quranic commentaries, as has been mentioned in Durr. So the ulama state that Quranic commentaries will be in the same ruling as the Quran itself. The Quranic commentaries will be in the same ruling as the Quran itself. But other Islamic books, you don't have to have wudu, but it's highly recommended to have wudu. This statement necessitates the necessity of ablution for touching Quranic commentaries, thereby placing it in the second category. Okay. Now, further instances include sleeping in a state of purity. So it's recommended that a person make wudu before they go to bed. On waking from sleep, which is quite natural if you're going to wake up for Salatul Qiyam al-Layl, Tahajjud, or you're going to wake up for Salatul Fajr. Renewing it to maintain it constantly because of the tradition of Bilal radiallahu anhu. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Oh Bilal, I witnessed you, I saw you in Jannah, I heard your footsteps in Jannah." So what is it that you do? Is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raised your status to such an extent? He said, "I don't neglect praying 2 rak'ah." 2 rak'ah after every wudu that I make. But Bilal radiallahu anhu, whenever my wudu would break, I would make wudu and pray 2 rak'ah. So being constantly in the state of wudu is very desirable. It's light upon light, ablution upon ablution if the sitting has been changed. What they're saying is that repetition of ablution is a good thing if you have used the ablution for something. If you make ablution and you're just in the same spot, and then after 5 minutes you decide to do ablution again, that's wastage. If you make ablution and then you've been traveling or you go somewhere and then it's time for salah, but you already have ablution, to make ablution again is a good thing. It's light upon light. Or if you have made ablution and you prayed, or you read Quran, or you performed any action that requires wudu, and you still have wudu for the next prayer, just to make wudu again is recommended. Just to make wudu again is recommended. After backbiting, which is mentioning your brother in his absence with that which he dislikes, or lying, telling lies, which is to fabricate that which is not. What is backbiting? The definition of backbiting Rasulullah ﷺ gave us, ذِكْرُكَ أَخَاكَ بِمَا يَكْرَهُ, mentioning something about your brother that he dislikes, that he would dislike if he heard. So the Sahaba radiallahu anhum said, "Oh Rasulullah, how about if he has that? How about if he actually has that thing in him, that characteristic?" So Rasulullah said, that is ghibah. If he doesn't have that characteristic, is buhtan. Buhtan means false accusation. Then you get 2 sins, one of ghibah and one of buhtan. See the difference? Rasulullah said, ghibah is to mention something about your brother regarding a characteristic of his or hers that he would dislike if you mention in his presence. That's what ghibah is. So the Sahaba said, "Oh Rasulullah, how about if he really has that? For example, you're making fun of somebody being poor, or you're making fun of somebody's clothes, or you're making fun of somebody's walk, or you're making fun of somebody's talk. That guy stutters and you copy him behind his back just to make fun of him. He wouldn't like it if you did it in front of him. So Sahaba said, "Oh Rasulullah, how about if he has that characteristic?" He said, "That's exactly what ghibah means. If he doesn't have that characteristic, then it's a false accusation. So you get the sin of backbiting and the sin of false accusation." So if a person engages in such a haram activity, it's better to renew your wudu, because the wudu is kind of spiritless now, because you've engaged in major sin. Telling lies, which is to fabricate that which is not and is not permitted. We always engage in white lies and telling small lies here and there all the time. Okay? So, which is to fabricate that which is not and is not permitted, except in the likes of war, rectifying where discord exists, and pleasing the wife. What does that mean, pleasing the wife? It means, "Hey honey, I bought you these flowers. Wow, how much did you spend?" "Yeah, $30. You really picked them up from Walmart. Okay? So, I mean, if you go to a florist, you're going to pay $30. If you go to Walmart, you pay, what, $5, $6? Okay. I'm not speaking from experience, I'm just saying. Okay? So, you guys always assume things. Rasul said, "Iyyakum wal-dhann," stay away from assumptions. فَإِنَّ الظَّنَّ أَكْذَبُ الْحَدِيثِ. Right, tale-bearing. What is tale-bearing? Namima. Namima means, in order to say jughal khori, right? Jughal khori. Rasul said, "La yadkhulul jannata qattat." A tale-bearer will not enter paradise. What does jughal khori mean? When you stir trouble, tale-bearing, you come and tell this person a story about that person to annoy him, and then you go and tell that person a story about this person to annoy them, right? And you annoy people against each other. Rasulullah said he witnessed two graves. Rasulullah saw two graves, and he said, both of these graves, people are being punished. وَمَا يُعَذَّبَانِ فِي كَبِيرٍ. Rasulullah said, they're not being punished for anything big, something that you consider very small, but they're big in Allah's eyes. One of them was, he wasn't saving himself from sprinkles of urine. And the other one, he used to tell-bear. He used to tell-bear. He used to cause fights between, and people do that a lot, especially jamjas. You know jamjas? Who's a jamja? Right, you have jamjas, how do you say jamja? Cronies, right? You have your cronies and people that they'll come and the people that want to gain your friendship or your companionship. They look up to you and they want to get close to you, so they'll come and tell you stuff about your enemy or somebody who dislikes you, just to get closer to you. That's what, I don't know how to say it in English. Jamja. What's a jamja in English? Spoon. Okay. It's called a spoon. That's a literal translation, but I should explain what jamja is. So tale-bearing, of course, is haram. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala dislikes it, and people engage in it a lot, and they don't even know they're engaging in it, which is striving to convey information from one group of people to another, seeking to cause dissension. Okay? If a person engages in such action, then they should renew their wudu, even though it doesn't break the wudu, but they should renew their wudu. It's recommended to make the wudu again after any sin and after reciting bad poetry, because ablution expiates minor sins. After laughing loud whilst not praying. If you laugh loud whilst praying, the adult, his wudu breaks. Remember the hadith Rasulullah said, whoever is in prayer and he does qahqaha. Qahqaha is the actual term in Arabic. Qahqaha means that a person laughs to such they raise their voice to such an extent that the person next to them can hear them. That's called qahqaha. That's called loud laughing. Not loud laughing is when only you can hear it. Loud laughing is when the person next to you can hear it. If a person does that in salah, their salah breaks and their wudu breaks too. But it's not very logical that, because wudu usually breaks from impurity, right? Right? Wudu breaks from impurity. If you look at all of the instances in which wudu breaks, they're all because of impurities or the possibility of impurity, like falling asleep. If you fell asleep in certain positions, it will break your wudu, even if impurity may not have left your body. It will still break your wudu. So generally, wudu is broken due to impurities or the possibility of impurity. But this is only one instance outside of it in which wudu breaks, and that is laughing loud in salah, because of hadith. Rasulullah said it, and you can't argue against the hadith. So that's called qahqaha. We're going to study that in the next chapter, the articles that break wudu.
But I say, just I'm sorry to ask you a question.
Yes, okay.
The question is this, no, I know that. See, when you give run the suppose Juma prayer,
Mhm.
you pray, finish, then you pray. Inside people is talking.
During the khutbah?
No, not the khutbah.
Oh, okay.
So when prayer finish, I'm praying sunnah or
Mhm.
nafar.
Mhm.
And it's in the mosque,
Mhm.
in the praying, and the people are talking,
Mhm.
talking this, then you can hear it.
Mhm.
So what is that? Is it my fault or their fault?
That's their fault. That doesn't break the wudu.
Okay.
It doesn't break
I
the
just want
wudu.
to
Yeah,
make it
yeah.
clear.
No, qahqaha means laughing loud.
And
The person in prayer laughing loud breaks their prayer and their wudu, not anybody else's. So if somebody else is laughing loud outside of prayer, it's not going to have an impact on one's prayer. Okay.
Quick question. So, I guess that's probably a different question, but that's something like, does that invalidate your salah, like if you're just laughing in general?